Hello, welcome to yet another thesis video episode. I'm your host Mika, and I'm joined here today by Catherine Dunford. Welcome and thank you so much for taking the time for this episode.
Thank you for having me.
So, you work at the moment as Alumni Relations and Black, Asian, and Minority Ethnic Engagement Coordinator at University of St. Andrews. And your dissertation title, which unfortunately we are not going to be talking about today, but I think you are drawing on your experiences in that. But the title is The Distribution and Physiological Roles of Nitric Oxide in the Locomotor Circuitry of the Mammalian Spinal Cord. Sounds fantastic, and I have no idea about this topic, but I would love to know about this, but some other time.
Yeah, we'll have to have a separate episode about my thesis. That's the thing about a PhD thesis is that it always sounds fascinating to everybody else except you once you've completed it.
Um, but today we're actually talking about referencing, and and the reason why I wanted to do this episode with you is that because when we used to work together, I got to know that you are really an expert on this. So it's really great to have you share your insights on this. So to kind of um, kick things off, why should we care about referencing?
Wow, why should we? Thank you for calling me an expert, by the way. Yeah, so I think this is an really interesting question because I think it's a question that all students ask themselves and they
Mm,
can't find the answer, right? And
mm,
that's obvious to their tutors or their lecturers or anyone who comes across their first piece of work that includes references because there's often so much teaching that has to then go into or coaching or
mm,
convincing that goes into the next piece of work before that is submitted with references. So yeah, why should you care? And I think that's we often answer this question from the perspective of the academic or the
mm,
lecturer or the tutor. So from our perspective, it would, if you're teaching on a course, would be, well, because you need to, it's the way we do things, it's the um, convention in our discipline in academia.
mm,
That's how we do it. What we do is we take information we from other people that other people have generated, and we attribute it to them because it's theirs, it's their ideas. So we have to say,
mm,
we have to show where other people have done the thinking, and we have to pay them their dues. We say that um a kind of acknowledgement of the work that they've
mm,
done, to acknowledge their copyright, as it were, their intellectual copyright. So we say that, and that's not enough for a student. That's not enough to care about referencing, because
True.
essentially, um, they need to care about it because it gets them better marks. They need to know that, and also,
Mm,
if they don't care about it, it'll invalidate everything they do. So getting not referencing is effectively stealing someone's ideas, and doing
mm,
it badly reduces the marks that you get. So they should care about it for that reason. Those are the reasons why people should care about referencing. But actually, there are all the way through our talk, our discussion, we're going to be talking about why people should care about referencing, because it's not
mm,
that simple. That's the most straightforward part of it, because it's where the marks and the punishment happen. But actually, the topic is a lot broader than that.
mm,
So we should care about it for more reasons. So what do I next go to if somebody is not convinced by why referencing is important? I'll say to them, well, imagine that you painted a picture or you wrote a song, and then a song music is a topical one because it's happening in the press at the moment. You've written
mm,
a song, or you've sung a song, it's very popular, it makes lots of money, but you get nothing because somebody else said that they wrote it, or somebody else samples your song and they make loads of money, but you don't get anything because they
yeah.
don't acknowledge you. So actually, in academia, it's less about money because there is no money exchange when you reference someone. It's about actually honoring that idea, that the idea is not yours, and that's really
Mm,
important.
mm. Yeah, that's a really nice way to put it. So in a way, it's kind of understanding that you are part of a like a larger continuum, right?
Yeah, but the
Mm,
thing is, lots of people also, and I think it's really important that we address the fact we address why people don't care about referencing. So most students will, at the beginning of their careers, not fully understand what journey they're embarking on. So they're embarking on a
Mm,
learning experience where they're learning about a new subject. They're also thinking about, I want to get out of this and get a career. They may be thinking about, I'm doing this course not because I love academia, I want to be an academic. I'm doing it because I need to get somewhere. So they don't
mm,
necessarily put a lot of weight into the idea that they're part of a continuum.
mm, mm,
And that is really important to acknowledge too, because if you have a student, or you are a student who's in a subject where you need to reference and you don't believe you don't have any love for this particular section of your course, or you're not going to become an academic in this, or you're going to leave your degree doesn't feel like where you're going to be forever because you don't know in the
mm,
beginning of
mm,
your degree what you're going to be doing at the end of it. It's hard to think I'm part of a continuum, especially when you're
mm,
learning new
mm,
things. So it's easier to think, sometimes I think, instead of thinking I'm part of a continuum, which you are definitely, you are part of a history, a lineage of thinkers. It's a really important place to be, but it's
mm,
hard to see at the beginning. It might be easier to think, actually, if I cite other people, if I use references, I cite other people and I put their thoughts in, my own thoughts will become clearer. People will see what I think and they will
mm,
say, oh, isn't it interesting you had this idea? Isn't it? I
mm,
can really hear where your thoughts are. Suddenly you're now being rewarded for the way that you think and what you believe, because it's clear what you believe, or what I say believe, what
mm.
you're writing an opinion piece, for instance, but
Yeah,
what you're writing, your ideas, and what someone else has thought of, there's a clear delineation between those. And so you can be rewarded for the way that you are doing your thoughts, the way you are writing your thoughts, the way you are doing your project. Does that?
mhm. No, that's super interesting. So like, Catherine, like it made me think that it's maybe this is a bit kind of crude example or like crude metaphor, but it's like a puzzle where you have different pieces, and there's like this is my piece, this is your piece, so I'm referencing this, and it's kind of demarcating or giving a space for others and for your own thoughts as well.
Yeah, an honesty. It's an honesty system. First of all, it's an honesty system
Mm,
that we enforce. You have to be honest. What's yours and what's someone else's.
mm,
But also, where do you fit into the puzzle? Let your voice shine.
yeah, yeah.
Don't hide yourself in amongst all the other voices. Make sure that each voice sings individually, like a symphony. Like which notes are yours? Where are you the melody? Are you the bass? Your your thesis comes together. Your essay comes together, and it's clear where all the different instruments are and where the melody is, and you are the melody. So yeah,
I
like,
like that.
I guess it's like the puzzle. It's the same thing like the puzzle. Yeah, just slightly different.
Okay. So now, I mean, maybe like on a bit more concrete level. So like there are also these, I don't know how do you call them, like referencing tools or referencing software,
Mm.
whatever. Why did you start using those?
So I think this is super interesting because when I started my academic journey, referencing to, not everyone had a laptop.
Hmm.
Technology wasn't so commonplace. So lots of people, including myself, we wrote our essays. So we had to, write in our citations and our references,
Hmm.
and it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work, and we got it wrong, and we
Hmm.
had very serious conversations with our tutors about this because you can't not reference properly. So at the beginning of my journey, I wasn't aware of. Most people didn't have access to referencing tools. Academics probably did. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
and so I came into, as I started progressing through my academic journey, I became familiar with, and they became more commonplace versions of software that would help you keep track of your references. And it was a complete revelation. No longer did I have to handwrite or, keep these notes separately. There
Hmm.
was software that would do it for me. And so as academia has evolved, as technology has evolved, those software solutions have evolved too. So they've become even easier to use.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I guess I think of, the very first software that I used was EndNote, which is still a game leader, as it was
Hmm.
a leader in the field of reference keeping. You
Hmm.
have to pay for it. So I could use it as long as I was within in the job in my PhD, but it's also it's one of they all have their different perks. The great
Mm-mm.
thing about that particular piece of software is that once you've put the correct things into it, it will give you anything you want very, very accurately. But it does take time to put things into it. It used to. It's different now because now things have evolved a bit. When I started, not long after I started using that particular piece of software, another one came along, Mendeley, which we lots of people love using now, and it was
Yeah.
a bit more intuitive. It would pick up data from documents, it would pick it up from websites, made everything so much quicker and so much faster, but it was much, much less accurate. So the work involved in keeping your
Mm.
records accurate was then after you had imported data. And so I think, yeah, my journey with software has been that getting to know those two pieces of software. I've picked those two. There are others.
Mm.
Um, Getting to know how to use them, how they are intuitive, how they will save me time, but also making sure that what I put in is accurate because it will only give you as accurate information out as you put in. And so you have
Mm.
to decide, which one do I go for? Which one feels more intuitive to me? The mistake I
Yeah.
think a lot of students make is to go for the sort of website that produces a citation, or you copy paste and it gives you a citation, or to go for the citation that's given in the paper, because there are many different styles of referencing.
Mm.
So
Mm.
it depending on what style your school uses or what style your paper that you're submitting, your journal that you're submitting to needs, you have to change that style. And of course, the software gives you filters for that. So the mistake you
Mm.
make is that lots and lots and lots of students make is to go to a website, put in a reference, get out something, put that into a document and say, I did it, it's right. And then, yeah, no, that's not how it works. So I think
Yeah.
actually the software is fantastic. It saves time. They have come a long, long way since the days of writing your references, but you do have to get to know the software. And I think that's one of the things that we as academics, former academic things that as we do as academics, that we do an injustice to our students by not explaining to them, this is a new skill you are learning and you
Mm.
need to learn it. You need to go away and you need to understand how we do it, and you need to learn the ins and outs of it. It's not something that you can just say, yeah, 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 referencing. You need to actually learn how to do it. And so we
Yeah.
don't tell them that. We say you need to reference your work properly. And then they go away and they discover it's a huge thing. So they think that they'll save time by making shortcuts, and you can't make shortcuts with referencing. So I think
Mm.
as academics, we shouldn't do our students the injustice of not explaining to them that actually you will have to spend a bit of time figuring this system out, but once you do, it will keep you organized. I still use it to organize papers, things that I'm doing, even if they're not academic related, because you have a ready-made library. Software will keep a
Mm.
library for you. You can keep track of things that you're looking into, just like a bookshelf. It
Mm.
keeps all of your
Yeah.
information for you, and then if you ever need to pull out some piece of information to tell someone or find something, you have it on your bookshelf. So it's like a digital bookshelf, which is really a useful way to think about it.
Yeah. Mm. And I think, okay, so and kind of building on that, and I think you kind of hinted at this already, but like, what kind of skills have you learned from paying attention to referencing?
So attention to detail, because you can't get referencing wrong, right? If you get
Mm.
a citation wrong or referencing wrong, disaster. So you might get one or two like slaps on the wrist from your professor, but if you do it, you can get expelled from your course for not
Mm.
referencing properly. So actually, you learn attention to detail and you learn to care. You learn to care about what other people say and think, and you learn to identify your own voice and your own thoughts. I think that's really important. Attention to
Mm.
detail, taking responsibility, accountability, celebrating your own voice. I've learned how to be more organized. I've learned how to, it's also helped me understand that you can view the world through an academic lens, but
Mm.
that's not the only lens that you can view the world through. So I can have conversations that are not about academia, related to academia, and I can apply the lens of academia, the idea of attributing, um, looking at what came before, scrutinizing what other people have said. I can apply that to circumstances that are not academic and see if I think that the argument holds up. So I think the world could do with a lot of that at the moment, where we don't really
Mm.
trust what people are saying. Well, actually, why are they saying this? Where is their source information? I think that referencing really gives you that. And I'll give you an example of when referencing didn't go right for me. So when I
Yeah.
submitted my PhD, so I switched from EndNote to Mendeley towards the end of my PhD because it was just easier to keep track of references, and I submitted my thesis digitally to my Viva panel. And
Mm.
when I started reading my thesis to prepare for my Viva, I realized that all of my references were out of sync because something had gone wrong between me, Mendeley, the export, and the printing. And I
Yeah.
had to approach every single member of my Viva panel and apologize that the printed copy that they received, all the references were out of order, and ask them if they wanted a digital copy or not. And then I had to go back and fix the problem. And so, yeah, just, it
Mm.
saves you a lot of time, but you've got to put the effort into it. Um, and um, it does teach you about attention to detail. It also teaches you about following arguments. You can make coherent arguments, because I remember reading back through my thesis and going, that paper's not the right paper to be cited here. No, that's not where that argument came from. And that's when I realized something
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
gone wrong. So yeah, it's actually really useful. And in the end, once you respect it as a system of keeping track of information and of citing others, it also helps your curiosity, because you suddenly discover you can find other very interesting specific facts in other papers by just following the citation trail, and it opens up whole new worlds of information for you. So it's actually also quite a useful ladder to take you through a subject if you're not familiar with it, because if you're not familiar with the subject, it's overwhelming. There's vast amounts of information. But now with referencing, what you can do is you can take hold of, you can stop at a moment, go away, read an abstract, see what other people are saying in this part of the field, then come back to your
Mm.
paper
Mm.
and keep following the arguments. Actually, it's a learning tool in a way as well, if it's done properly, which is why we should do it properly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that should convince anyone or everyone of using or paying attention to referencing. Now, Catherine, as a final question, and this is something that I ask from all the guests. So, based on your experience, like what kind of advice would you give to people regarding referencing or referencing tools?
So when you first encounter referencing, or you are unconvinced that it's a necessity for you, or that you need to pay attention to it, you at that moment should find a tool. There are many on the market. I've mentioned
Mm.
two. And you should sit down with a couple of papers, books that you enjoy, and play around with them to make sure that you become familiar with how the software you're using treats the information you give it and what kind of outputs it. But learn the software. Learn the software. Don't underestimate the time it will take you or the effort it's going to take you, because you're going to be learning new skills. Like all the things I've just said, you'll be learning new things. So it's not going to be straightforward. You're going to need to dedicate time to learning how to do it. But once you've done it, it's going to make your life really, really easy. Always, 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 always check what comes out of your software. Doesn't matter what you're using. If I was writing
Mm.
it by hand, I'd still have to check it. It's a lot easier with software. So always check what's coming out versus what you've put in. For the first of all, the story I've just told you illustrates why you should do
Yeah.
that. But also, you can catch a mistake you may be making in all of your references if you check the way that you're outputting it. Um, and also explore how your software is flexible. Where does it give you? It should always give you the option of using different styles and giving you an accurate output. Um, and the last thing I'd say is about software and referencing generally is always make sure that you're consistent. If you pick the
Mm.
wrong style, or you choose to do one thing that change the style that you're using slightly differently, even if it's not correct, as long as as in if you add an extra word or a letter or a different bit of punctuation, stay consistent. Because if you're consistent all the way through, it shows that it's not a mistake. You're consistently doing that, right? So you can
Mm.
still be relied on. The information you're providing is um, still relevant. So be consistent. Get to know your software. Don't underestimate the time it takes you to learn how to do this.
Mm.
And if you have any questions, talk to someone about it, right? I know it
Mm. Yeah.
seems a bit strange. If you go to your tutor and say, can we talk about referencing? Make sure you've tried to do all the stuff that you've tried to do beforehand. Because all these things you need to learn on your own, do by yourself, are not things that your professor can help you with. But if you have any other questions on top of that, then speak to them about it. Um, Particularly if you're not sure what style to be using, etc., etc. Does that help?
Mm. Absolutely. Catherine, thank you so much for taking the time and to share your thoughts.
No problem.
Absolutely. Absolutely wonderful. And just to remind, so the title of your dissertation was The Distribution and Physiological Roles of Nitric Oxide in the Locomotor Circuitry of the Mammalian Spinal Cord.
Yeah.
Catherine, thank you so much once again.
Thanks, Mika. Take care.